Hey everybody, it's Kairos. Thanks for tuning in. I'm doing a jungle concepts guide on basically the best places to ward. So this is super helpful for junglers to just get more vision control on the map to help your laners not get ganked and also to help you counter jungle and secure objectives based on tracking and knowing where the enemy jungler is. So let's first talk about just the first clear. So a lot of junglers are currently walking in and then they're placing a ward somewhere in here or maybe on a buff, and then they're recalling back to base, and then they're picking up the trinket ward. So that you have that to go out. So that's become pretty standard in play right now. But I just want to talk about the scenarios when it's best to do that and when it's best to do something else. So when you are doing this, when you're warding for somebody's first clear, be sure that you're placing the ward somewhere that you know they'll clear the camp. So if you're against something like a Lease or a Lee Sin, they don't really like doing AoE camps. They get really unhealthy doing these, and it takes a long time. So if you place a ward right here, they might not even take this camp, and they could just walk around here if they know the ward is down and dodge the vision completely. So if you're going against a single target jungler, then it's better to place it on a buff that you know that they're going to clear versus something that they may or may not do. But if you're going against something like an Olaf or an Evelynn or a Karthus or a Mumu Zac, you know that they will be clearing the AoE camps, in which case it's better to put it right here so that you'll see them when they do take that camp. And so that's kind of how you should ward to try and spot out the first clear. Make sure that you're putting it on a camp that you know they will actually clear. But putting a ward something like here or in the river really doesn't do anything for you unless it's a jungler that you expect to invade you. So this is typically not an effective ward. It's much better to get ward on a camp, in my opinion, unless you know their jungler is going to do something like an invade, in which case you can vertical jungle or something like that, and the vision sets you up for it. Then next, if you do get that ward and then you recall, it's not always best to switch straight over to the scanner. So if you do place that ward, sometimes it's better to keep your trinket ward. So if you're something defensive like an Amumu or a Zac that doesn't want to be invaded up here and that you want to be able to play defensively, a scanner doesn't really do you any good. You would much rather have that trinket ward so that you can get another one up and ward an entrance right here or ward the entrance over here so that you can see if somebody is coming to invade you after you're clearing up to your top side. So if you're full clearing or something like that, it's better to keep a second trinket ward for the safety. If you're something like an Elise, where you're doing like a 3 camp where you're going here and then up into blue buff and then the Gromp into a gank, it is better to take a scanner. So if you're a early ganking jungle, you take the scanner so that you can scan out this and this as you're approaching for the gank, so you know if they've spotted you on a ward leading up, and it'll just give you a better probability of success. So if you're looking for ganks early, switch to scanner. If you're trying to power clear and be defensive, then keep your trinket. All right. So next up in the lane phase, we're going to just go over some good places to ward in general. So our guiding concept is that it's better to ward deeper. So deeper is better for your ward placements. And what I mean by that is if you're warding for your top side, so your top laner is pushing, you can ward in this bush right here, and you can put a ward down and he'll be safe. If the jungler walks through the tri-brush, then he'll see it and he'll be able to react. Or you can get a ward much deeper that you could use a control ward or something like this in here. And that way, when the jungler comes into the top side to clear either of these camps, your top laner will see them much, much earlier and he'll have more time to react. This is like an extra 10 seconds that he'll have to respond versus this right here. It might already be too late if he's pushed up. The gank's already happened. So it's the same concept as why you don't place a shallow ward right here as a laner, because that only gives vision out to right here. But if you take the extra 2 seconds and place a ward right here, then it gives you a little bit more vision. So it's the same concept. Warding deeper is always, always better. So work on getting deep wards, and that's what these spots are going to show you some optimal places to get those. So first of all, let's go from blue side placing offensive wards. So we'll come over here. some of the best ward spots if you are able to go as deep as possible. I really do like this ward spot, not putting it over here because that's not quite as much vision. So if you do it close to the blue, then it doesn't give you much vision up here. It hardly gets past that entrance. But if you put the ward on the edge of that brush, then it goes back here to the side, and all the way, almost all the way to the gromp. And so you get quite a bit more vision by putting it on the edge. So try to maximize vision like that. And then also this is still a good ward spot so that you can see both of these camps. And then if you can't get all the way up there, then this is actually a pretty good one that gets you these two plants. So if you have priority in mid and bot, then go deeper. If you aren't sure where the jungler is and you're pushed in these lanes, just go with a shallow ward like that. Okay, then up to the top side. Some good spots are, one is right here. This will give you this plant, and also it'll sometimes give you the transition from the brush into the red buff, and it'll give you the ramp. So if they're going from scuttle or they're crossing from here to here, then you'll be able to see that. So this is a pretty good ward spot. And good control ward on the top side up here would be in this area. This brush is pretty good because it'll get the Krugs, and also if they're on the red buff, it'll most likely get them. And a ward trick up here on this side is that without walking up here, you can actually get a ward into that brush. If you see this moss where it meets the rock right here, and you just click right in between those, then it'll put the ward in the brush without it. If you go to the left, it'll miss. If you go to the right, it'll miss. But right on that crack and outside of the range, it'll put it in there. And so that's a somewhat useful trick right there. Okay, so now we'll flip it. So we're looking at the red side. So red side jungler coming in. This is a really good ward spot. If you just look at the crack right here and go a little bit outside, this gives you vision of the blast cone. It gives you vision like all the way into that plant. It also gives you vision up here into the gromp. So this is a really, really good ward spot. If it's not safe enough to go that deep, then right over this wall to get vision of both of these is really good. And then if you can't go that deep, then this is also mirrored from the other side is a good ward as well. So those are 3, 1, 2, and 3rd in priority on the top side. Then we'll come over here, and the wards are just mirrored on this side. They're pretty much the same with that ward, and then deep control ward right here is also pretty good. And we'll look at wards down here. If you put one right on this snail here, you can ward over the wall without having to walk up there. So that could be useful if they have a control ward or something like that, or if you're uncertain and don't want to walk in there and face check. And then also there's a ward trick right here. It's a little bit tougher, but if you walk into this corner of the pillar against the wall and come over here where it just turns blue after that, you can place a ward in here, and it's actually in the brush over there. And so it gives you really, really good vision of that bush and all the way over to the blast cone. It is a little bit tough to get because if you go too far while the indicator is still green, you'll just walk around. Or if you go too shallow, then it won't give you vision. And so it's just not as useful. So you can practice on that and use it kind of situationally. Yeah, and so those are some of the ward tricks that you could put into practice to just get really deep vision and see the jungler's pathing early on.
Boy, I am.